Hello, welcome to this live drafting diaries, all new on YouTube for 2023. I'm Charlotte from the School of Pattern Cutting, and I'm with Kate from Project Patterns, and we're really excited to start a new series of drafting diaries. Up to now, you might know us from our Instagram live, and of course, you might also know us from our drafting lessons. We both teach pattern cutting on our website, so do have a look in the descriptions. And you also might know Kate is very famous for fashion half cut, so check that out as well. But we are starting something new which lots of you have asked about. You enjoy our chats, but sometimes you would like a bit more substance, was the feedback to our questions before Christmas. So what we're going to start new for this season is a 3-part series. So we're always going to be live on YouTube for everybody to watch and share our knowledge and expertise on a specific subject. This week it's cut out backs or interesting back details. And then the following 2 weeks, we're going to have small group lessons on how to draft it, and then also construction tips and guides on how to construct the style. So they're about in these lessons you will learn how to draft the full style. There will be a live Q&A, and we do the same for constructions, and they'll be each Tuesday at 8 p.m. So if you're interested, do check out the link in the description again. And let's start off with interesting back details, and Kate is going to give us the lowdown on scooped backs. And I'm going to say hello to Suzanne quickly. Lovely to have you in here. And let us know what your favorite back detail is, if you have one, please.
So we thought scooped back neck would be a really good one to start with, because it's one that everyone knows of. Like, everyone has seen beautiful occasion wear dresses with scooped backs, all different shapes and all different heights and lots of different variations. But it's something that's really simple to create, that lots of people can do, even if you're a beginner. So a couple of things you want to think about when you're doing a scooped back is, first of all, what height you want it to be. Do you want to scoop down past your bra line? Do you want to scoop all the way to the waist? Do you want to go below the waist? What kind of height do you want? And also, what kind of shape do you want it to be? Do you want it to be like an oval shape? Do you want it to be a V shape? Do you want it to be some fun, cool little shape that you can think of? You can do lots of different things here. You also want to think about, you can do like a fold back, like a little lapel on the back as well, which is always really cool. And you also want to think about where your shoulder is going to sit, because that shoulder is what holds your whole garment. Everything hangs from there. So when you're doing a scooped back, you're basically taking away all of your back neckline and cross back support. So everything that's holding your garment is those shoulder points, and everything that holds those shoulder points where they are is your front neck. So generally, if you're doing a scooped back, you would have a high front neck, or at least one that's sort of this sort of scoop level, so that those shoulders are held really nice and solidly on your shoulder points. A couple of things to think about when we're drafting our scoop back. A standard scoop back pattern looks something like this. Oh, wrong one. Something like this. So a couple of things for your drafting process would be, think about your contouring, think about where your darts are going to be. Maybe you can eliminate your darts. Maybe you can put a seam instead, all kinds of things like that. And then you also want to think about your finishing, any facings, fusing, that kind of stuff. But remember that we are doing a whole session on drafting tutorials and also construction tutorials. So if you want to know more about the specifics about drafting or construction, join us for those final 2 sessions. Charlotte, anything you want to add to scooped back?
Yes, because Kate and I had a bit of discussion about this. If you want to look at any of these images in detail, I've put Kate's Pinterest board in the description, so you can actually have it on your screen while you're watching and see where you agree with it. Because Kate put up this dress, and I thought, oh, that's beautiful, but how is it staying up? And as Kate said, that basically the bigger your scoop neck is, the more you have to think about support. And with a dress like this, which has quite a low neck, you would really have to think about how will it stay. And especially if you want to dance in that dress, how are you going to basically, if you stay very straight and still, it's probably going to look beautiful. But if you want to move around, maybe, even if it's your wedding, you still want to, move a bit. You have to think about how to maybe support it a bit more. And as Kate said, there are things like straps, and we've chosen a few we really liked. There's just like really classic straight straps, and the great thing about it, as soon as you add straps, you can really make them tight because they're such narrow pieces of fabric. They're cut on the straight of grain, so you have no ease in them, and also you don't have to have curves or something. You can really wrap them tightly around your body, so they make the dress really supportive. And the other thing we really like for dresses like that is, I had to of course include a Claire McCardle, is if you have a really deep cut out the back, it becomes like a halter neck. And of course, the halter neck works perfectly because if you ever worn them, it has that really tight fit in between your neck and your scoop at the back. And that tightness, that zero ease, basically by getting rid of any ease, that stays on really nice and won't flap around. So these are all the things you have to consider. And we were going to talk about one last scooped out back because we both thought it was a fantastic example of how this works. And do you want to tell people about that, Kate? It's the, what's it called again, this dress?
I forget the name of it, but
Jessica Rabbit dress.
That's one.
Yeah.
So you can see this scoop goes well below the waistline, right? And the waistline is what cinches in most dresses. So if you're going to scoop that neckline down past the waistline, it's basically just going to open up and flap about. There's going to be nothing holding your waist in. It's going to grow and grow. So what they've done here is they've added a little strap exactly at the waistline to still cinch it in. So you still get that cinched silhouette, but you get like a pretty much naked back, which is really lovely. And I think that's a really interesting detail for any drafting people to think about there.
And we should probably talk about fabrics a little bit for scooped out necks, because something like this will work well because it's a knit fabric, I imagine, wouldn't you? I would imagine it's a nice knit with quite a lot of nylon or something, spandex, to keep it in shape. The original probably wasn't, but if I would draft something like that, I would use a fabric with quite a lot of support in it, not like a drapey wool or something.
Yeah, I would go one of two ways. So I would either do it in a knit like that, so it really clings to the figure and it can then fit lots of different body types. Or if I was doing a bespoke garment, then I could do it in a woven because I could fit it precisely to the body I'm fitting on. Something like this is probably like a crepe. So something that has quite a lot of movement, quite drapey, quite malleable. And you can see that kind of fits the body really nicely. And it also has quite a lot of weight to it. You can see it sort of dropping down the body.
And you can also see how they're hitting above the waist, so it fits really well. And that's sort of, when you're looking out for drafting, that's what you have to consider, how to do that. And for finishing these sort of dresses, you just have a full facing and line the bodice. It's sort of, in a way, you want quite a nicely constructed front quite often with quite a lot of support. So it does sort of hold you up a bit, which is of course quite interesting. In this dress, I found it quite interesting because it has a relatively low front and then a really low back, which is also drapey, the whole style. This is not a fitted style. So I think this would be the sort of style you really have to make a trial first and actually see whether you will feel comfortable walking around, or whether you, like Kate said, you have to, if you put the shoulder wrong at all, it will just fall down all the time.
I would think that style might be on bias as well, which does help because it adds weight to the garment. If you think about, if there's weight pulling your garment down, if it's sitting on the shoulders, it's less likely to slip off.
Yes,
something like a chiffon would just float around and fall off.
I think it's definitely a bias at the front. The back could be either. Because actually probably your lapel at the back isn't, it's quite a small lapel, so that's probably of a straight of grain, and then the style itself.
I wonder if that one's functional as well, if the lapel folds up with a little button and loop to give you a high neck if you want it.
I thought it must be, because it sort of depends. It doesn't look quite big enough, but it could be.
I reckon it probably does. Yeah.
But
Which
if
I love that idea.
I've been talking about these sort of styles with somebody Instagram who she does traditional Indian clothes, so lots of saris, and she said she always struggles because of course they have a low cut front quite often, and then she also wants to do a low cut back, like we're talking about. And again, what we were saying just now, what you need to add at some point, if you want to have a double style, you need to add something across the top. So again, with the Jessica Rabbit, which is an extreme example, again, this is actually being held up because it has the strap across the back at the top as well.
Yeah,
So as
yeah,
long as
that
you
will
have sort
definitely
of,
be taking some
yeah,
strain of the garment.
yeah, the 2 points will keep it all together. So it was the first style. The second style we want to talk about it. We sort of start a bit, but they are cutout of windows or keyhole shape. So at its smallest, a keyhole is literally just a little hole, which is mostly for access. So if you have a dress with a high neck, you add the keyhole for practical reasons. But most of the time, it's also nice to turn it into something pretty, and that's when you can end up this really nice big geometric keyholes like this Claire McCardle. And this is similar to the scoop neck, but you have to really think about where to put your darts, where you have to cut out your ease, and also things like, for example, if you have a very tight fitting dress and you do a straight keyhole, it might end up being distorted. So you really have to think about what shape you have at so it actually sits nicely on your body. And have you got a little sample for that? Kate is the little.
You know how I feel about half scale patterns? They're just
Yes,
adorable.
no, you're fantastic. So again, you can see how you have to treat the dart a specific way, and also think about how to, again, the bigger you make it, you're going to end up with a very big hole where you used to have fabric. So then you have to start thinking about how to hold it up again. And I always, when we started talking about it, I said to Kate, you always think about modesty and stuff like that and how to actually wear it. And this one actually came up as an advert, but it's a fantastic example. It's a really big cutout, but they basically added that black bow, which is exactly on top of your bra strap. So you can wear it as a bra, which basically then means you don't have to wear it as much because it will stay up. And also by having the really tight bow, it basically holds everything together. So it won't slip down. So you always have to think about, if bigger your hole, your cutout is, the more you have to think about where else you fit it to make the style stay as it is. Any notes?
So one other thing to think about on the back of what you were saying about the bow and tying stuff together and making sure you've got the strain on the correct parts of the garment. One of the differences between like a window like this or a cutout versus the scooped neckline is a scooped neckline, the strain of the garment sits on the shoulders. So when you move, the garment hangs from the shoulders, and any sort of drag lines or a movement or twisting goes through those shoulders and to some extent the fabric around your lower torso. Whereas a window like this, because you have a closure at the back neck and a closure at the back waist, that's where the strain goes. So often what happens is when you move or twist, the fabric that goes around your bust area opens up at the back.
Yeah.
So it's almost like if you take a circle, like an elastic band, and you put like some strain on it, the sides of the bit that moves if you strain the top and the side, top and bottom. So adding that little bow or a little tie or something across the bra strap area will really help you with your fit. And it means, like Charlotte said, you can move, you can dance, you can do all kinds of fun things.
Yeah. Sorry, I was going to say, this is a really good example of what Kate was saying on this dress. These really narrow straps basically hold it all up, so they have to be perfect because there's even if your fabric move while you are cutting out, you're going to have twisted straps which don't look right at all. And I put this in as a scoop neck, but I think we should actually call this a cutout neck.
Yeah, I reckon so.
Now that we
all the
discussed
shoulder and
it,
everything's cut away.
yeah, this is a really extreme version of a cutout, an Kate said, where you really, if you don't fit it, you're gonna have drag lines along here. So this is, I think it's literally a triangle. And then it's a really famous Claire McCardle dress, and it's literally, I think, a triangle, which is then pulled around it. So that is where you're really gonna end up with. You can actually see here, can you?
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
it's trying to be pulled in, and it's actually slightly straining under the, trying to hold it tight. So that's a perfect example of what Kate was saying.
Yeah.
How it has to be fitted.
And the thing is, if it wasn't that tight, then that diagonal edge would be gaping,
Yeah.
and then you would just be flashing everyone anyway.
Yeah,
so.
and it's that sort of that gapes here. And I think I actually, as halter necks, I always find if they fit perfectly, they actually start hurting on your back after a while.
Yeah.
They look,
Yeah, I always
they
think
look
that
here.
too. Yeah.
Which is why styles, actually, I was gonna show one last styles. Things like this, which is sort of a mixture of a cutout. It is a cutout. They are really comfortable to wear because you basically have a normal construction. You just have a really cut out section at the back, but you can see how it actually where the bust is. Oh god. Trying to hold the iPad. This area here, that's where it matters, where it's fitted tightly. So the
Yeah.
cutting of this is really clever, that it basically is really comfortable to wear, but it looks really interesting. And that's done out of a stretch, a real nice knit with lots of spandex on it, so it actually stays really nice. Looks like a nice heavy stretch as well. So that was our notes on cutout styles, and we're gonna finish off this the back wrap. And do you want to tell us a bit more about this, Kate?
Yeah, okay, so we all love a front wrap, right? And we all talk about wearing wrap dresses and wrap
Claire
tops and
McCardle.
stuff like that. There we go. But we can also do a wrap at the back. And I guess maybe a really simple example of this is something like an apron. You know, it's all one piece at the front and then it wraps around at the back. We can take that idea a million steps further and create wrap tops that wrap at the back. We can combine like a wrap at the waist with a cutout detail at the like cross shoulder area. Yeah, something like that. We can do a wrap on top like this example. So the wrap is at our shoulders and then the ties are at the waist. Or we can do it that the wrap is at the waist and then the ties come round to the front as well. We can do so much with wraps and it's really, really fun to experiment with. A couple of things that you need to think about when you're doing wraps is kind of like on the front, where do you want your wrap point to come? You could do a really high wrap and that wrap could cover your back bra strap as well. You could think about where you want your shoulder points to come to. Again, if you have them super far out, you need to just think about where your front neck is sitting, again, to hold that shoulder in position. You can think about if you want your wrap at the top or the bottom. You could think about doing contrast fabrics, all kinds of really fun things here. One thing that I would say about a wrap is if you're doing a woven fabric on a straight grain, if your wrap's directly on the diagonal, then it's going to be on the bias grain, so it's really difficult to stitch without it stretching out. So try to think about a few things you can do to help minimize the room for error on that edge. You can do a million things. I'm sure we'll mention a couple of them in our construction session at the end of the month, but there are a couple of little tips and tricks you can do to help yourself when you're sewing, basically, because you want to make your life easier, right? So why not?
And Grace just commented that she's loving all the images. Is there a Pinterest board? And funny that you ask it, Grace. You can find it in the description. So Kate very kindly put together a board with all the styles we're talking about. And I was just thinking, we don't actually have an example of the wrap at the bottom, but I have a dress, so I will put that on Instagram because it's from the
Okay.
60s, and it's got a very high neckline at the front, and then it has a very low back. But it is actually a bit like you said, because it is cut in the bias at the back. You start having issues with how tight it fits, and so I will put that up. But I think especially styles like this are really interesting because you don't see them that often, and they're a bit more unusual to draft, and you can have lots of fun with different variations, whether it's a really tiny one or whether it's a really big one. So that's the one we decided to feature on our two-part small class lessons, which you can join via the link in the description. And the reason we chose is because it's a bit more unusual. And also you can do quite a lot of clever things with how you add the facing and constructions to, to make it fit you well and add the lining and all that stuff. And you can also do both in knit, like this example. And I actually, one of the companies I work for, we used to do them as just 1950 style woven dresses, but we said really beautiful back neckline. And we're also going to talk about how to get into these dresses in our classes.
Yeah, I think this is one of those styles that looks quite simple to the eye, but actually there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot to think about in the drafting process. There's a lot to think about in the designing process. And there's certainly a lot to think about in the construction process. There's a lot of little sewing areas in there that might be a little bit tricky. You might want to just really think about. There's a lot of tips that we have in store for you to help your kind of sewing process, make it a little bit easier. And of course, there's things like contouring and all of that we need to think in there.
It's a professional ad. But I want to show you this in comparison, because it has a bit of a wrap line, but I would actually class it as a cutout, and it's pretending to be a wrap because it has like a normal keyhole access point at the top, and then they just added the seam lines and piping to make it look like a wrap. So that's like a sort of basic version of a full wrap. So it sort of pretends to it, but it's easier to construct. So yeah, these were our favorite back details we wanted to share with you today. To finish off, so just we actually we haven't talked about if we're going to do a giveaway.
Oh,
yes, sorry. And what we basically thought, what we do each month, because I know, we try to make the courses really reasonably priced, so it's affordable. But I thought also we might do a giveaway. So on both our Instagrams over the coming days, one person can win both the lessons. So do make sure to enter and keep my eye out for it. And we're going to have the 2 lessons. They're going to be next Tuesday, which should have done this before. We're going to be next Tuesday and the Tuesday after that on Zoom via Kate's Project Patterns website. And they're going to be at 8 o'clock UK time again. And this time, Kate is in charge. So she's going to show you how to do the actual drafting. And I'm going to be behind the scenes answering your questions as we go along, as you have them. And then the construction tutorial is you're going to get both of us answering your questions and showing you how we would construct it. Yeah, so we are back on Valentine's Day with our drafting tutorial where you learn how to draft the full wrap dress. So, join us on that. And then on the 21st, we be back on construction tip. After what we also thought would be a really fun thing, if you actually make the style, do share it with us on Instagram. And then one of the people again who shares the makes with us, we're going to do another giveaway, and you can win access to a next lot of drafting diary lessons in March. So there's always going to be ways of joining it, even if you can't afford it at the moment, or chance. And you can join in as well. So even if after our live now you make something, share it with us, and we will share the Instagram. You have a chance to win the lessons next time. So, but these were our 3 favorite back styles. Is there anything you want to add, Kate?
Just thought we should mention the price of the session. So each session is £10, but if you buy both sessions, you can get them for £17. So you get a small discount on that. So yeah, when you go onto my website, there's like 3 options. If you want both, buy the £17 option, basically.
And Kate designed the website completely by herself, so I'm in awe.
Any web developers out there, do not judge me.
The other thing that came up before Christmas is that people basically they want recordings. So one of the great things is these Zoom classes. We will send you a recording to your email address afterwards, so you can watch it again and again if you want to. Can't get enough. Anyway, thank you so much, everybody, for watching. We would love a thumbs up if you're watching, because that will share, because YouTube is not a fan of live. So if you like this, do please give us a thumb up or comment, and then it will get shown to more people on YouTube. And finally, next time in March, we'll be on Kate's YouTube channel. So that's going to switch around, but we'll keep you updated on our YouTube channels and Instagram as well. But that's it from us for tonight. I hope you enjoyed this live. I'm Charlotte from the School of Pattern Cutting. I have been, of course, with Kate from Project Patterns, and you can find how to follow her on YouTube in the descriptions below. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. See you later, Charlotte.
See you, Kate. Lovely to chat to you.